Hello, friends. Welcome back to Mindfully Amplified. My name is Jasmine Villies. I'm your host for this show, and I'm excited to be here always with you all to have these conversations. So, welcome back to Mindfully Amplified, where every episode is a journey of personal growth and cultural exploration. Tuning in and turning up the volume of your life and business. And today we are talking to someone quite special, near and dear to me, my brother, Stephen Villies. You guys may have seen him here before. We have done recordings of conversations that we have that actually take place during our meetings. And we just were like, these are some really potent conversations and also conversations that we believe would support you all. And so it felt necessary, absolutely divinely orchestrated that we post those to the podcast. So if you haven't listened to those, they're just short, I'd say maybe 10 to 15 minute conversations that are maybe a few episodes back, maybe sometime last year. So just kind of scroll back, you can take a look at those. But today we're having a more formal conversation. Stephen's come on and we're going to be talking about something that's holds a lot of emotional weight for us. We're going to talk through our experience really with grief, and I like to refer to it as our pendulum swing. So we went one of us went this way, the other one went that way, but it was still the same kind of extreme into our lives, and grief deeply impacted us. And so today we're having a conversation about grief and how we responded to that grief, one through rebellion, the other through overachieving. And we're gonna just go ahead and get going and see. Stephen, thank you for being here.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
So first I want to talk about, like, you and I, obviously siblings. We are, how many months apart are we? We're like just
9,
under
10, or I guess it
no.
can't be 9. I would at least need to be 10 or more, right? Is it like 10 months? It's something 12. Maybe like, it's
I
not a
think we're
full
like
year,
Irish
right?
twins. It's like under a year and a half or
Yeah.
something like that. So I feel it like from August to February to the next August. So just about under a year
Or the
and a half.
next August. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I've never calculated that before.
I know. So I'm like, wait, fast forward.
When
So
someone asks me how much older are you than your sister, I know. I'm like,
I
I don't know.
I just refer to it. Someone told me before that Irish twins are people that are born, I think, less than 18 months apart. And so that's how I know. I know we're Irish twins. We're very, very close in age, but he is my older brother. I joke that even though we felt more like siblings, like twin siblings, really, because we were
Yeah.
hanging out together a lot.
Yeah, same friends, same circles. Yeah.
Yeah. And, we both experienced the same younger years, like traveling a lot, moving a lot, which holds its own layers of grief. But
Yeah.
yeah, but then we landed in a place, like, I think from my experience in that time, and it could have been just the time, right? We were like middle school age, like felt more settled, like felt like we had lots of different friends and had been in that area for a stretch. Was
Yeah.
that your experience too?
I think so, yeah, because even after that, those events, we still stayed in that same area. It was mainly Virginia, just Northern Virginia. We bounced around. So, yeah, it was definitely felt more like we had our roots planted.
Hmm. Yeah, it finally did feel like, well, we also were old enough, I guess, where friends could actually start to drive us places. So even when we moved away, so that's probably why that maybe felt like it for me felt like the first time that we were kind of settling, because the years before it was all the moves were far enough that we all had everything was very reset. Schools were reset, friend circles were
Yeah.
reset, and this was like we were here, and now we knew people from these communities around, and we continue those relationships. You especially, you more than me, continue those relationships. I think
That's
I
only because I'm in the same area.
Yeah,
If I wasn't, that probably wouldn't be the case. So,
for sure. Yeah. You and I both, I think, embraced the restarting many times over again. Even though after the military life, we did bounce around like a ridiculous amount. I jokingly, affectionately say that it was the most annoying moves because it was not
yeah.
far enough that it was interesting, but just far enough that it was like starting over. Like every time was new everything, new teachers, new schools, new people, even in the neighborhood and stuff. and we were young that we couldn't go. It was a different time, especially that people weren't playing online and stuff like that. We couldn't even do that. We were If you weren't seeing people at school or in your neighborhood or
Couch
around.
co-op action,
What'd you say?
I said you had to do the couch co-op action, have someone come
Seriously.
over, and that's what I remember doing. I remember have very fond memories of, having four friends over playing, Nintendo 64, 007, and when we lived in Leesburg, when all that, the tragedy happened, it was definitely very fond memories. But yeah,
I agree. It's funny because at that time, right? Like I think my our parents were working, both of them working a lot, and I do remember having our friends over to our apartment. We were all living in an apartment, and it was like we used to hang out for for hours and hours, and then we go to the pool, and then we go to so and so's house, and yeah, it
sharks
was
and minnows.
sharks.
You don't understand. I was just talking about that game, that pool game the other day. It was very
Does
fun
anyone,
to think
if
back.
you guys know what we're talking about with sharks and minnows, please let us know in the comments somewhere on this video that you're watching because, yes, very fond memories of sharks and minnows. I thought I was going to be a lifeguard hanging out with the lifeguards at the pool in the neighborhood. I just enjoyed that so much. And yeah, it was such a fun time to kind of feel free. Like we were pretty, we're, grateful for this now, but we were pretty uninhibited, and we had lots of free reign. Our parents were working hard, but we were kind of just doing the thing. And luckily, everybody kind of lived in that same area, and yeah, we were hanging out. Yeah,
It's fun.
doing the most.
It's funny because my daughter, she talks about how this area is boring. But I'm like, look, when I was out here, it was fun. Like I didn't even think about going anywhere else. Like I was just around this area, enjoying myself. Like
Yeah.
almost every day, too much because that's what affected my progression in life. So that's
I would say that our kids have a different life experience completely.
yeah.
I even think the expectation is different from them because they've been so online, and I would say almost a bit more sedentary than us. Like we'd be out running the streets, riding bikes. Like the other day I was on this, very, I don't venture into a lot of groups, but for whatever reason, this particular post showed up on my feed. And I'm actually not a member of this Facebook group, but I guess a lot of my friends are. It's in this area that I used to live in, South Charlotte. And there was literally an entire thread of parents. They had taken pictures of these kids that were hanging out at some shopping center, by the way, next to the movie theater. And the police were there in the picture, of course. Something must have happened, but it wasn't like based on what was happening, it didn't look like anyone was getting arrested or anything like that. They were just, but it was maybe 10, maybe 12 to 15 kids. So it was a lot of kids. But the comments were so judgy. Like, where are these kids' parents at and whatever. Like, they're all like high school age. I'm like, I'm just grateful to see these kids out in the world, like
I mean,
doing things with each
because
other.
that's when we would go to the movie theater. It would be more of us there,
So, and half
hanging
the
out,
freaking
going to
school,
see a
right?
movie, or hanging out in that area. The one right in Sterling. What is that one? The Regal.
The Regal.
Was it the
That's
Regal?
so
The one
funny.
right
Yeah,
there
Regal.
by
There you go.
what was that? Taco Bell and the and that shopping center there. Yeah, we were out there. I was gonna say deep, but I don't know if the audience knows that actually.
Rolling deep. They probably know. Somebody our age knows. They was rolling deep. That's
Yeah,
exactly right. That's the thing. Like, it makes me sad to think that even parents are a little bit dissatisfied with their kids being kids and having experiences, and being out there with their peers. It's different if you're like, oh, they're like, trying to be indoctrinated into some gang or something like that. That's different than just out in the streets with their peers. And when these kids, especially this generation, grew up with the pandemic, they have had 6 years of their lives being consumed by being online, and so the idea that they would be expected to continue that lifestyle just because that's what people have seen and been more comfortable with, it feels really unfair. So anyway, that was just a little aside, but but I'm grateful for that season for sure. And I think it's really important reflection because at that time, like, I will say that up till that point, the moment of the awareness of what it means to lose somebody really hadn't hit me. Mom's grandma had passed away, and I remember being super little. Like, I don't know why I have weird memories of
I
that
don't remember
funeral.
that.
I don't remember, I don't know why I have weird, it must have been just such a, emotionally charged moment for someone that's, a little bit
Because
more
her
sensitive.
grandmother raised her, right? Is that from what I remember?
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Her grandmother raised her. And it's I love that you say that and question it, because, this is what I'm trying to change. Partly the reason why this podcast exists is like I want my kids to know me and my life and things. I think that for whatever reason, it maybe has been, I was going to say sheltered. And I think that that comes from our mom's mom too, like feeling more protective about the
More
past.
private about your, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so so I've been asking a lot. Actually, you saw the video I just posted with dad, I've been asking a lot of questions lately. Like I need to know. I want to know more. Tell me what that was like living in that place. What that was like, why were you there? What was the, relationships that you had? Like it's so important. I think that we learn that before, life shifts for us. But
I think it's amazing because Ariana, my daughter, my daughter. I just wanted to make sure the audience understood who
yeah,
Ariana is.
yeah.
She constantly asks me about my past and my life and all different kinds of questions and what did I do, who was it, what their names are, can I go see my cousins, I want to meet them. I'm like, look, Ari, it's not a past you want to know about, okay? I was not a good person back then. Just don't worry. I'm just ask about how I am now and what I do now with my life.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not worried about that bad time, that
I
bad
think
era.
it's good that you talked about it though,
Oh
because
yeah,
I think,
I
we can,
do tell her about it a lot, and I'm just
yeah,
always surprised that she keeps asking me about it.
they're interested. I mean, and I think that these are the things that shape, right, our experiences. When we know more, we understand more. It doesn't, I think our fear as parents is that if we open up them to this world, then they might repeat our things. But the unfortunate thing is, I think that inherently in this, there's a lots of metaphysical science and things like that that speak to this, but that will happen. The cycle will continue
Yeah.
until there is conscious awareness of it and a conscious choice to break it. And I think that only happens when the kids are introduced to these are the things that I did. And here's really what I would have done differently. Not like don't do that because I did that and don't ever do it. Not like in a critical way, but more like here's my self-reflection, and not all the things all, and they're like 5 years old or something. You're just like, yeah, and I got drunk with my friend, like, you do all that. But I do think that it is really, really valuable to have witnessing from your kid, because your kids can sometimes see you as that like person who doesn't understand because you're the parent. It's just like that was that Will Smith song, they don't understand, the parents just don't understand, like that's the feeling, like they don't think you almost have an understanding of your parents that they never experienced what you experience. And if it can kind of, I think, remedy the relationship by just having a conversation, especially as they're in teenage years. Steven's daughter, is just to make sure people know, she's a teenager now. So like she's,
About to go to high school too, ninth grade.
I
Those are
can't
some
believe
crazy
that.
times and during my life. So having them know your past and your the past mistakes. Even though it might they you to me it feels like she's like glorifying it in her mind. She's like, oh my gosh, my dad's so cool. He did all this cool stuff. But at the same time, it kind of allows her to understand, yeah, I did that, but I changed because there was nothing there. Like I was not only getting nothing from it, I was actually losing things from it, losing a future, that losing just possibilities and different things like that. So yeah, I totally understand why it's important to share. Just to have a conversation. Why did I make those decisions? Why did I do those things? And she gets a better understanding at a I don't want to say at a too young of an age, but at an age where, she's going to be grappling with the same decisions that could alter her life and change the person that she could possibly be in the future.
Mm.
For a period of time, hopefully, because people will change, they will during this time, teenage years, the years that we experience that, what did we call it here? The surviving tragedy, right? I want to make sure I get the, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So surviving that, it's like during those formidable years, it does have an impact,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to tell someone, hey, I did this in the wrong way. There's a right way to do this,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I could see the definitely the benefits of that.
Yeah,
I'm not
100%.
quite sure. Loss. There we go. Loss.
Loss. Yeah.
Because I don't usually talk about stuff like this. So
I know. This is so those of you who are new here know that I've had some conversations about grief and loss, and I think that it's like been more openly in conversation for me over the last couple of years. I'm gonna say like maybe 2.5 years, which sounds pretty. I mean, I am 42, okay, or 42 in a month or 2 months. I'll be 42 in 2 months. So like, it's been a long journey for me to have just like learned about the grief and the compounding of grief and really learn to kind of work through it, move through it. And ironically, the word never came up. Like Steven's saying, like it never, not that it never,
like I don't even really use the word. I
yeah,
couldn't even. That's why I was saying tragedy. I'm like, yeah,
yeah,
that's how I know how to. I don't even know how to describe it as grief or loss because you get so immune to it, you just learn how to move on. Because that's pretty much. And I don't want to say it's like you don't care. It's just you know how to internalize it, push it down, and then again, not even realizing that it is still affecting you in your decision making, especially when you're young and you have to deal with that kind of loss. When you're older, you're kind of more set in your character, so you can, kind of accept it more. At least that's how I feel.
yeah.
But when you're
I feel like
younger,
because you've had more experiences with
yeah,
loss, maybe like there's certainly some younger folks or folks who are, even in their youth that have experienced tremendous loss and maybe know it more intimately. But I think as we get older, right, we realize, oh, people around us, they're not going to be here forever, or seasons of our life aren't going to be there forever because we talk about loss, like grief and loss. It's multifaceted, right? It's not just like, okay, this person was in my life and now they passed away, transitioned. That isn't always just the experience. It's like I've been living this life for a while and now I'm making choices that are bringing me into somewhere totally new, or I've been having this career for so long and now I'm choosing something different, or this relationship and something, it's like the shock of that new life experience actually comes with layers of grief and loss and
in
compounded
different
like
areas too. It doesn't just have to be, either someone passing away. It could be, losing a job that you've had for a long time. It could be, but when you're younger, I guess it could only be a very few, it wouldn't be as many things as when you're older. But yeah, you would still have to grapple with those things,
yeah.
and yeah.
Yeah, and I think over these last couple of years, I have what I like to call like I had this grief was all here in this like overflowing burst, almost about to burst balloon, and it was there, and then something happened that just punctured it, and it was like the balloon just exploded. You ever had that with like a huge water balloon that you're just like so excited to throw the darts at it, and it actually punctured it, and it exploded all over my life, and that's been me dealing with grief for the last couple of years. And it's like I have actually acknowledged so much grief that I did not acknowledge in my years past with my own reading and self study, but also with therapy. And it has helped me acknowledge the ways in which I condition myself to move through grief, and what you and I both witnessed in our earlier years about what you said already, just like get over it quick, just pick up and move on. Even the moving
Which
a
the
lot.
army life also lend itself to that as well.
Exactly.
Meeting
Yes.
people and losing friends, losing relationships with significant others, and very
Precisely.
very difficult. So
People you love, people you thought you were going to have let's plan our high school years. We're going to go to prom and we're going to do this thing and we're going to, yeah. And life changes in an instant, and it isn't something that I think we at all, it was painful as a kid, but I think I wasn't as aware, speaking for myself, of how frequently it happened and how many of those relationships were brought in and gone and brought in and gone. And it also created this relationship with, for me, grief, well, loss, or the absence of people, of what I like to affectionately call the control alt delete. Like the safer thing is to just reset everything, like just get rid of all the other history. That's the computer language, Stephen. Control, you remember?
Mhm.
Just reset the whole thing. Control alt delete, and I say he remembers because now he's a Mac guy, but before he studied
The
computers. So.
command or something like that. Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, control alt delete felt like the healthy or the comfortable thing to do is pretend like it never happened, right? And that will be the safer thing for myself to just move on, and that over the course of time ends up becoming
So
more and more difficult.
I think I remember you telling me when, I guess we can share with the audience what the actual loss was, right, in our life. Is that because I always wondered when the last time we talked about this, you said I was 14 when it happened, when our older brother died.
Yeah, and I was 13.
Or 13. Okay. Yeah, because I always thought I was 15. So I was my daughter's age that she is right now.
Yeah.
And thinking about like how we were at that time before it happened, like right before it happened, how you were kind of dabbling in certain things, doing certain things, and I was like, nah, I'm never gonna do that. I think it was you were like smoking cigarettes or something at that time. I was like, nah,
Yeah.
I'm never gonna do that. And then Toby died, and it was like I did everything from that point on. It was just who cares? I if we're not going to be here forever, why even try? And as I think you changed up and then started going hard with just building your own business, and I was over there dropping out of high school and just, just doing nonsense that I had no business doing. And yeah, I definitely look back on those times and think about if and I'm not saying that I blame my decisions on that. I was still young, so there's things that were still forming. But I do think that if I would have just took life more seriously and not let it affect me that way, and made better decisions, who knows where my life would be? Because after putting in the work that I've put in this last decade, since I was late
I think before
20s.
Ari, or right around Ari's, maybe 12,
Yeah, so
13 years.
like
Yeah.
maybe
It
like
was it was
20.
right before her, so maybe 14 years, I guess.
Yeah, so I mean we're talking about from like 14 to 27. I was just doing nothing with my life. Nothing at all.
You were doing things.
Yeah, I was doing things, it's just nothing that is I would want to talk about publicly. Let's just say that, But just thinking about those times and understanding or just thinking back and hope and wishing I could do different things and try harder. I'm like, man, where would I be? Because like I said, when I changed from 28 to now, the progress has just been unbelievable. Just the things I've been able to do. Just, I mean, even just the way I look right now, without all of the drinking, late nights, partying, and just hurting my body, and to now focusing, having a very strict discipline on exercise, diet, reading, learning, and like things that I would never want to do. I mean, and being curious about what it could mean to do things like this. Like learn how to talk to people and have a real conversation and not just surface level BS and or talking about the latest hip hop song or mixtape, like just throwaway conversations, being able to do things like this is now because otherwise I would never do anything like this. I would never be on camera talking about things that are positive, but and just realizing that if I would have been able to change that, earlier in my life and really be serious about it. I tell Ariana and Felicia, I'm like, I don't know, I could have been president, I don't know. Who knows?
Exactly. Get it? Get it? I mean, listen, I feel like we experienced a lifetime, maybe even multiple lifetimes, up until that, you mentioned 27. Ironically, 27 is also when things started to kind of shift for me a little bit in a different way. But what it is that, right, we were just, in my experience was that it was like just doing what I know to do with the moment at that time, right? It's like, I don't know anything better. I'm just going to do my best with this moment. And yeah, we both had a completely different life experience. And I think that at that stage, I think that unspoken, we felt things about losing our brother. Like, I don't ever even remember talking about it to anybody in our family, like meaningfully, right? It was never for me, never like a, how are you feeling? How are you doing conversation? To be frank, like my struggle at that stage in my life was like really wanting to spend more time with him, because he was older than us. He was 19 when he passed, and he was living with our grandmother. And just to kind of give some context, and so my desire at that stage, I mean, we would spend time, especially like summers and things like that, living in the same house with him and spending time. But I think at that time it was like quite a
He came and stayed with us too. Remember, he was working with
exactly.
mom.
Yeah.
Like, because for a while, we didn't really get to see him that much. And
Yeah,
then as
especially
we
when
got
we were
older,
traveling, we were out of
which
states. Yeah.
what kind of it made it worse, because when he got older and we got older, we were hanging out with him a lot. I'd
Yeah.
see him at mom's job because she was managing that club and he was working there, and he stayed with us for a while. And I remember one.
Forgot about that, by the way. You said that. God,
Right? Well,
it's
I don't
easy.
know. Tell me if you remember this. They were, I think, Toby, mom, and dad got into an argument, and Toby was like, "You're not my dad." And that was the first time I was like, "Wait, what do you mean he's not your dad?" What? And I was like, "Wait, he's our half brother?" I
Yeah.
had no
Yeah.
clue. Like, we didn't
Same.
even know, like that. Again, that goes back to the privacy of you know what mom didn't want to discuss things with us, the past. Like, we had no clue that it was our half brother. We had no clue. We thought it was our whole real brother. I mean, I don't even think I ever asked questions about why he didn't live with us, and
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for sure revealed to me over time, mostly after his passing. Like that was a strange thing to experience, I think, to not really understand or know the story or why, and then obviously, learning learning his full name and the last name. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Like, my brain didn't, like you said, didn't consciously connect with the fact that like there's a whole other life that my mom had lived before, like it just mentally didn't quite connect. But at that time, with him being us getting up to an age where we both realized, like, it's kind of cool to have a big brother, and I loved it. I think he was very protective. You and I were more like twins. He was very protective, big brother vibes for me. Like that was
well, he made me and Donnell fight. He made me and my cousin fight each other. I remember at Rudolph in DC off 14th Street, that school.
I remember Rudolph. We would do
We
like
were at
summers
Rudolph, yeah.
there all the time.
And he
Yeah.
was like, "All right, you two are gonna fight, and if you don't fight him, I'm gonna fight you. I'm gonna beat you up." So, but he was teaching me to be tough. He played tricks on me. You remember putting toothpaste on me. I mean, I still looked up to.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, he put it on my lips or something when I was waking up. I remember that. But yeah, he was definitely a big brother that was trying to make me tough. Because I was from Virginia. They considered Virginians soft.
Yeah,
And
soft.
he was in DC. He was,
Yeah.
in the heat of everything. He was right there off 14th Street, right? It's 14th
Yeah,
Street,
DC
Missouri
in
Avenue.
the was it the 90s then, right? Yeah, DC in the 90s is different than the DC that people know today,
Oh,
by
yeah,
the way. So,
yeah,
like, that's the DC where it's like, keep your doors locked, keep driving straight till you get through that part of the town, and then we're gonna go to this side. We're gonna go right.
yeah. That area is different now,
So
totally.
different. When
Yeah.
I see, every time I still go, I'm like, so weird. Like gentrification is strange, but strange experience. But yeah, I mean, I feel like there was an excitement for us to have had this relationship kind of blossoming in that time of our lives when we both like needed that. We needed people. Like, our parents were busy, not, and no shade to them at all, because it was hard life. They were young. Like I keep reminding myself how young our parents were. Like they were
Yeah.
young. Like I mean, they had you and I, like they were both in their very early 20s. And so, this is, they're still very young and they're maybe early 30s at the time and still just trying to figure out what I'll call civilian life. Life outside of the military is a very different life because a lot of things in the military are kind of told, ordered literally. You've got to go here, you've got to go there. This is how it's going to happen. This is how these things are going to happen, when you get there. And they were figuring out how to adult without the military, and that in itself takes a lot of effort and a lot of resources. It was, so they were both working a lot. So I say all of that to say that I think that he was kind of like the parental type, I will say guardianship in that way for us. Like it felt really exciting to be able to be around him more. And then, there was he got engaged, or, was going to have his girlfriend was going to have a baby. And it was like, oh my gosh, we're going to be like aunts and uncles. This is going to be so cool. Like I was super excited. I remember I remember thinking about finding out it was going to be a girl. It was like, what was super exciting to me. It's like, you get to buy all this stuff and I get to decorate all the things and do all the, And I will never forget that night, it's like that feeling of hearing our mom, scream in the middle of the night. It was such a sudden loss, like I will say very literally happened out of nowhere. Like it was just like, wait, what? It was all right right around the holidays, going into the holiday season. So it was.
I remember the movie I was watching. I remember everything about that night.
I was asleep.
Yeah, no, well, I fell asleep watching. We ordered on pay-per-view, if anyone remembers that service back in the day. We ordered on pay-per-view The Great White Hype with Damon Wayans, right? Yeah.
I
You
remember.
remember that movie? So I watched it. I binge watched it like I think 2 or 3 times. I was a teenager, like 14, so of course, I was just enjoying watching something that was new and it was funny, and I kept rewatching it. Did the same thing with Bad Boys when it first came out. But I remember watching that movie, falling asleep, and then, like you said, here waking up to that, just the scream that never. And I watch A Boys in the Hood, and every time I hear that scream after Ricky dies, it does the same thing, because that scream is just something very, very particular. You can, it just triggers something. It's like, wow, that's definitely pain, And yeah, so when I heard that, woke up and then got the news, it's like, wow, this. And one thing that I always think back to is when I was at the funeral, I don't remember crying. I remember Ashton being there, our cousin Ashton,
I was just texting
and
with him the other day.
having,
That's
well,
so funny.
joking and playing with him, having like not even really taking that moment seriously. And like I said, I think about this often. I'm like, why didn't I didn't have any emotion there, not a negative emotion, not anything that looked like I had a loss. But at home that night, I cried in my sleep,
Mhm.
and it was because it was uncontrollable. And maybe it was because I was young. I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't understand fully. Like, okay, this thing happened. But yeah, I just remember like thinking back, like why was it like that? Why did I not have emotion there in public? But
Yeah.
when I was sleeping, my pillow was wet, and I remember being asleep and crying like it had just, like it just happened, like I was at the funeral or something. It was just really, really odd. So yeah, just wanted to point that out because I still think about,
Yeah.
why did I do that? I mean, I don't understand.
I mean, we were so young. Like, I think that is the part that I always have to keep remembering because we've had a lot of life experiences that I think have kind of, I'll say, catapulted us into maybe a feeling that felt like we were almost like we're supposed to be adults, so we're supposed to feel a certain way. And so I think that there was always a misconception that like we're supposed to have that part figured out, like this is what we're supposed to do. And I also recognize, 'cause I remember the funeral like it was yesterday, and I remember just there was so much happening, like there were so many sounds and so many cries and so many, like, it was very, a lot of people emoting a lot. I mean, it was a sudden loss, our brother was murdered, just so people know. So it wasn't like a he was sick and we, kind of something progressively happened. And we don't know who murdered him. And so that has, in itself, holds a lot of pain that just doesn't go away as easily as, being able to kind of accept that someone has passed on is sometimes a little easier when you have an answer, to why. And so I think that day anyway, like, felt so big, like, emotionally outside of us, that in my experience, like, the almost lack of spaciousness, I guess, being able to, like, feel my own emotions, because there was just so much happening and that I was witnessing outside, that I didn't know where it was supposed to go. There was no place for them to go that moment. And yeah, I mean, it was a long, long ass day. And, I think that, to your point, like, life was happening, like, Alexa was already born and she was around and she was the baby. That's our brother's daughter, and our niece. And, it was kind of like, well, what do we do now? Like, let's do that now, like, focus on that now. And yeah, and that's kind of what happened. Like, it
I
just,
just think about how much Alexa looks like Toby.
oh my God, crazy. It is beautiful. Like, she has
Do
grown
you
into such
remember mom
incredible.
got pregnant right after?
That's what I was
Yeah,
going to say too. That, I think, also, so there's so many layers, because we're at a time where we're both, life is happening, we're teenagers, and some of the biggest, most profound life experiences happened for both of us, I think, in that year and a half window. And I say profound, it sounds positive. I'm just going to say impactful things happen in that window. And then to have us be
like,
teenagers grown, to have a little brother that's coming, and
yeah.
very literally almost right after. So, like, Toby passed away in November. Jesus is our little brother, was born in August of the next year. And so I think none of us really, our parents didn't expect it, for sure.
No,
Like, they,
it was a
because
surprise baby, definitely. I
big
mean, the
surprise.
age gap was just, what, 14, 15 years? It was
Yeah,
like,
we were like, we're other parents for him in that way. And for me, it was, I was excited, but I do think that at that time, because there was so much happening, it was like somewhere else for whatever emotions that were unsettled to go. It was like somewhere else for those emotions to go. And it was poured into this little baby, and he was hilarious, and he was such, he's such a sweet boy. And we were like, oh my God, you remember, like, we were like, he acts like Toby, like, he looks like Toby, like, we just had this feeling of, like, he's like Toby reincarnated or something. Like, I just
it
remember, like, the
definitely
cute
felt like
little
that.
cheeks, and yeah, like,
Well, because you remember when mom was pregnant, I was like, it's going to be a boy. It
yeah,
has to be a boy. Like, there's no way it's going to be a girl. Like, it's definitely going to be a boy. And yeah, and it was a boy. So,
crazy. Yeah, so all of that happened so quickly. And I mean, even for our parents, like, not having the time to process all of it, like, it's all going on. Like, the Alexa was
well,
born. He,
it was worse because Toby was doing good. Remember, he was working with mom. He was working at the gym with her. He was not doing the other things he was doing. He was trying to better himself and really provide for his baby, and that's how it always, I mean, even in movies, I think that's why they even portray it that way, because in life, art depicts life, and those situations happen. People are trying to do different things, move on with their life, and do something more positive. And yeah, the negativity just creeps in there and changes everything.
yeah, I mean, jeez, it's crazy. And I feel so unconsciously connected to what happened next. Like, for me, like, you painted the picture of a little bit of your experience, and I mentioned earlier in the time together that it was a pendulum swing. Like, Stephen was definitely on the mode of, like, life short, it don't matter, and I was
Yo,
very much like, what'd you say?
Say YOLO basically with the
YOLO,
kids.
for sure, for sure. And I was doing that. Like, that's the weird thing is I was already on that path, and I know it wasn't conscious. Like, I know I wasn't like, all right, I got to get my act together. It just happened. Like, I just realized something in me noticed the fragility of life. And I was like, I got to do something. And I was already at that time, like, I was making jewelry, selling jewelry,
Yeah.
doing babysitting, my babysitting business. Like, I was already had those little moments, but I was still having a good old time and partying. And I still had my teens. We're just gonna say that. I still have my teens. But over here was my teens they happened very like
Well, when you
passively.
were a teen, you still changed to start a business. You know,
Exactly.
like
I did
that
my
was
teens, but everything else, right, was
great.
still happening. Right. I started volunteering at the hospital along with all the other things that I was doing, then working, at first at IHOP, then at the doctors, and then it just kind of continued from there that I was like, keep going, keep going. And I went from the other side of that is like life is short and now I got to figure it out and I got to make it count. And it was went way over here to this pendulum swing of overachieving, overgiving, over for way too long. Like that is what I have been unlearning over these last 6 or 7 years now. It's probably about 2018 that I really kind of started really doing it. In 2017, it was kind of like a crack in the foundation, so to speak. And now, since then, I have burned everything down very literally, and I'm still standing in the ashes and putting it together right now. It has been a very weird ass journey, especially for someone who is an overachiever for so long. Like the shut up and just do it mentality, the push through it and motivation, like culture being the mode of achievement, is so hard to break away from.
Hmm.
So hard. Yeah. And that part, like, that was truly when I realized that I was drowning in that life, I just looked at the clock and it was 44:44, by the way, which was weird, but just saying that. When I realized that I had been in this, I will say, thinking about a mouse on a treadmill, and I'm
Yeah,
just running,
eventually.
racing myself somehow, like, and feeling like I have to do all these things before my life, whatever. Like, I recognize the fragility of life, and without realizing it, was running in the opposite direction away from loss, and I've burned myself out like that. My life, like, same thing. What you're saying would have been different potentially if I didn't just do it unconsciously, just pushing the gas.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
you were
because you
unconsciously pushing the
probably
brake. I
spent
was
most
like
of your
on the gas.
well, what happens is you spend your time doing things since you're doing it unconsciously. It's not actually something you want to do, and then once you've dedicated all those years to something you don't want to do and you snap out of it, it is very jarring. Why am I doing this? What am I doing here? Like I don't want to do this anymore. You start making those changes, and I mean, at least we are strong enough to make those changes, like and confident enough, because most people, they don't, they do lack confidence, and they do, and like you said, that since they're moving unconsciously, all their decisions are most likely other people's decisions,
For
just other
sure.
people's, you know,
Other people's survival strategies, like
yeah.
that's what you've embodied, is like this. They figured out how to survive, and coping by maybe not coping, like by not even tending at all to, not even acknowledging that the grief is there, the loss is there, and just, going for it, going through it, and, pushing against all of the things that potentially could have felt more aligned than yours, like things that didn't feel like, oh, I'm just going to keep going. And now I'm over here and I don't even know how'd I get here? Like, how'd I get to this place? It feels almost, at least in my experience, like I felt after so many years of just like checking all the boxes and trying to do all the things that I thought would prove that I did enough and lived enough. I felt like I was now looking at my own life. Like, I'm like, whose life is this? Like, this sucks. Like, that was literally the feeling I had. And not, not that it was all bad. It just wasn't mine. I hadn't chose it. I just arrived there, and yeah, it required a lot of unlearning. Like there is, I think, this attachment to, oddly enough, this like identity that we both had built, right? Like to choose another identity is like, that's a bold move, period. But it's also super freaking difficult when you've lived in this type of life and world and had this experience for so long. So what was your turning point? Like, what was your moment where you like, I think I'm gonna
Change
do
this
something
life.
different. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna do something
I was
different.
actually just thinking about that. I'm glad you asked. That was actually when Kenny died.
Mm.
So after Kenny got shot, he was my dealer at the time.
And he was our cousin, by the way. So
Yeah, he was our
yeah,
cousin.
and yeah,
And
another
you
loss
know,
by gun violence. We'll just acknowledge that.
yeah,
Sorry. Continue.
yeah. He after he passed, that's when I was like, all right, I don't this life anymore. It's not for me. And then of course when Ariana was born, it was even more so like, yeah, I got to do something different. This is not working. Even though it was fun, it was making money, but then it's like it's not worth it. There's things here. So yeah, that's pretty much what made me change is that event, and then it was like, all right, I'm not doing that. It's dead end, literally.
I'm so happy that you chose that and acknowledge that it is a means to an end, and like you said, a dead end. Which, yeah, horrifying to say that, but it's unfortunate. It's a crapshoot right there. It's like everybody. There's some people that make it out and some people that don't, and yeah, I'm
And it's
grateful.
crazy because mom and dad, well, at least mom, she always tried to keep us out of those areas, of that life, of, most of our family being in areas where there's a lot of violence and things like that. And me, I ran straight to it. I was there all the time. I was, it's like, and that's when it comes to my parenting, I actually don't try to, try to tell Ariana not to do something, unless, of course, there's a reason, like, hey,
Safety,
you don't do that
right?
because there's a bad outcome.
Right. Safety,
It's a bad outcome. This
concern.
is a bad thing to do. Like you don't want to commit a crime. Obviously, you can go to jail. Those kind of things. But I do want her to go out there and make some mistakes. I want her to learn. I want her to, have these things happen that she can learn from. Because otherwise, you're just gonna, not know what to do. And I don't want that to happen. Because like our parents, they told us not to do things, but never really like why. And it would be things. It'd just be because I said so. And I feel
Yeah, I
like
think that was I guess a generate from what I hear on socials and some of the '90s kids, that it was a generational thing, or like,
really because I
I
said so.
assume that is like, I don't know what that comes from. It's probably conditioned from something, I'll say ancestrally, but yeah, the like do what I say because I said so kind of.
Which makes you want to rebel even more if you
Right.
haven't. It's like why? Well, fine. I'm gonna just do it
I'm gonna
anyway.
right. I'm gonna test the boundaries, and it's funny because I was no angel after this season
Yeah.
of our lives, and I definitely tested the boundaries, but did it also because for me it was kind of like, well, why not? Like nobody's telling me, no one, no, and not to sound like we're bashing our parents, because we're definitely not. The reality is that they were figuring it out, and part of that figuring it out didn't yet
They were
include,
young as well.
yeah,
That's
so
the
young,
thing. You just
so young.
said.
Because Jesus, our brother, lives a totally different life. He had a totally different childhood than we did, because of not just, right, it's age, and I think maybe wisdom. Like they just didn't have, they
They were
were not
stable.
right. They were
He's
figuring
lived
out
in the
how to.
same place since he was like. He's still in the same area,
He still lives in the
but
same
you know
area,
what I mean.
same
It's like
friends,
he's
or
been
some of
here
it.
all his life.
Yeah.
Like he's got his roots in this area, and we have our roots in this area in our later years, But yeah, he's been around in this area for an
Yeah.
extremely long time.
Yeah, I think there is a recognition that when you open up the conversations, just like you were talking about with Ariana, your daughter, that when you have those very real and vulnerable conversations, it dispels the mystery, because really the allure is, first of all, in the 90s, we're going to call it out. The 90s definitely glorified life in the hood, all right? We were excited to understand that side of our family. It existed in our family, but we weren't as close to it or privy to it. And so it was a bit of an allure, or like a intrigue, I think, because it was something that we didn't get the choice to say we wanted to do. So we're like, well, we want to do it, and I say I weirdly enough found my way into some of those things differently than Stephen did. Yeah, exactly. But for sure, if I believe, and this is a hypothesis, considering that Rania, my daughter, is 21 now, and had a different way of speaking to her through her about life, and similar to what you've talked about with your daughter, that I have allowed her to make her mistakes. I have reminded her of, like, these are the things that I did. I definitely spent the first maybe half of her life doing what my mom, probably her mom did, and her mom before that did. Just, no, just do what I say, and try just doing the thing that was conditioned, and not because I wanted to. It's just I didn't see any other way, and it really wasn't until I started to I
But you
understand.
didn't know.
Right.
It's not like someone gave you a class on parenting and you were like, all right, I'm going to do these things. No, it's just like, all right, it's what naturally came out,
For
And then
sure. Yeah, it was
once it became a conscious thing and you were like, well, yeah, why am okay, I'm not doing that anymore. You know what I mean?
for sure. When I realized, like, wait, how did that support me? And it has evolved over the last few years recently too, our relationship as well, because she was in it. She lived it with me when I figured out that, I didn't want to be the because I said so mom. I didn't want to be the, shelter you from all the things in fear that you're going to be wanting to go towards all those things, which makes you want all those things, to rebel and do those things. Yeah, it's definitely a weird catch 22. I think that it is really, like, with Noah. I jokingly say this because I also, those of you who've been around here know that I do also have a 12-year-old, and he self manages and on his, which is, I'm grateful for that. Like, he makes choices that I would say that I didn't ever get really a chance to make at that time, per se. Like, I you don't want to watch, he's like, I don't watch R movies. I don't watch R-rated movies. That's not for me. That's not appropriate for me. I'm like, okay, like, I'm sorry, damn. Like, like, you feel mad at me. I'm like, he,
But you're not even curious just a little bit to see, you know what I mean? Like, nah, I'm good. Just turn it on.
no, why? Why would I want to watch that? Like, no. I'm like, okay, you could if you want. All right. Like, I just let him know that that's, available. The choice is there. I mean, not that I want him to watch those things, but, like, I think that there is a delicate balance, and we are both not experts in parenting. We're both figuring it out, and we've learned from our own experiences, and also making different choices as parents, being on both sides of that, at least from my side, with Rania being so much, like, say, older than Noah. I had younger years of parenting like my parents did. And then I have this experience with Noah while I'm in my 40s now, and that is a totally different life experience, and allows me to witness myself in a way that I value, I'm grateful for, and realizing that, at the end of the day, every kid is unique. Everybody's needs are unique, and we get the choice to help them blossom into their individual selves. And that's our role. And that's going to require different needs. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even looking at it logically, it's like the more the more the more informed they are, the better decisions they'll make. The
For
more
sure.
you try to teach them the right ways and not try to, hide things or just be private with certain things because you don't think they're ready for it. Most likely you're wrong. You might as well just be like, hey, look, this is the way it is, and then this is the way it could be. Yeah, this is what happens when you do this. It's like,
Exactly. Here's the potential outcomes, right? Not like, this, you do this and then you're going to be it, but more like these are choices, and some kids make these choices, and this is another possible option. Now, like, I think that the weird thing about this season of like our child's lives, this generation, is like they have everything at their fingertips, information, we had to actually actively do things. Like if we wanted to have access to porn, like that was work. Like that was like you had to like sneak into a store, someone stealing the magazines. Like you had to, sneak into a store, steal the CDs or DVDs or whatever, like, or not
Yeah,
steal.
no, phones are the one thing that I've actually had to, you know, restrict and control because it's just too much free access. And I wasn't restrictive like that at first. I gave her full reign. I was like, look, this is your phone. You can do whatever you want with it. But if you start doing things that you're not supposed to do, then I'm gonna have to take it. Like if you sit in your room all day and do nothing but sit on your phone, like no, that's not life. I don't want
Life.
you to live like that.
For
I'm giving you this phone so you can have communications. If it was up to me, I would have never given her a phone, honestly, because it's just ever since she's had the phone, it's been downhill from there. But she has learned how to manage it. Of course, like I said, I had to put some restrictions on it. But yeah, it's very hard, with the phone thing. That has been something that okay, kids are going to be kids and they don't have any control, self-control. At least if they do, it's very, very low. And maybe there's some, outliers out there that have really good self-control that can just say no or
Capricorns in the
whatever.
world.
Yeah, it's like they could exist, but majority of children, they are not going to have any self-control. And yes, I felt like I was naive and I was like, no, she'll be fine. She's smart. She's not going to do those things. She tells me everything. Like, no. And of course, that wasn't the case. So yeah, I would always say there are some things that you would need. Society has created something that is very addictive for children, and it seems harmless, but it's really not. It really isn't. It's very, very harmful. Now, it can be a positive thing too. They can use it as a tool. But it's not going to be the case for most children because again, self-control is not. That's usually something that children lack. So
Yeah, they're also figuring it out, and when given something that has an unlimited end, like I was with someone talking the other day, like I remember when Instagram had a feed that had an end, like where you could scroll and you could get to the bottom. That doesn't happen anymore. Now it's unlimited possibilities of getting sucked into minutia and new ideas and things like that. That's so different, Like for us, we had to invest. We had to invest. We had to buy magazines, read the magazines, like like you're like,
of them, and it's like
yeah, we're like we had,
hiding stuff,
cutting
like
magazines out and hanging up pictures on the wall to remember people. Now it's like they follow their favorite things and people, and yeah, it's a very, very different life
it's one
experience,
device.
right? Yeah. So have a we have a few things that I want to move to in conversation. Do you think that this would be ideal for us to continue this in a part two?
Yeah, of course. I'm sorry. Been a good
No, it's perfect. It's perfect. I feel like the next part of our conversation is a little separate in the sense that like this we're talking about our journey with grief and the different ways that we went. I want to talk about after we went those ways, how do we get ourselves to where we are today in our part two? Because I think that that's really vital and supportive for people. Like I think there's a conversation that needs to be had about the acknowledging that you really never have gone too far, like to kind of bring yourself back to what you truly desire for your life, even though, you're like, I have this history, this past situation or whatever. I think that it's important to allow people to see our lens of our life experiences and how we kind of found our way back to this place where we both, well, I speak for myself, I feel satisfied with this stage of my life. It's a weird season because it's still very new, but I love it.
Well, it's funny because I often tell Felicia and Ari, I'm like, no lie, if I were to die today, I would die a happy man. Like I would be extremely happy with my life and how it turned out if something were to happen to me right this moment. Like don't say that, but I honestly feel that way. Like anytime I say it, I'm very honest in when I say it, saying that.
I resonate, relate, and it makes me sad to hear you say it still, but it's also, I hear
No,
what you're
but
saying. I
it's
know,
also
I
a
hear
very
what you're saying.
positive thing. Like
It's
I
absolutely a
feel
positive
so
thing.
great and I love
But you
my
are my
life
brother,
so
and
much.
I don't want to lose another
No,
one.
of course.
No, but it
But
won't
it's
happen.
only
I hear
happening
what you're
just so
saying.
I died a happy man, you know?
Exactly. I know. I hear that. And I relate to the fact that, yeah, like feeling content with the ways that we've moved through life, like, and coming back to this place of, I'm going to say wholeness, where we see ourselves in the picture, we see ourselves as whole people, we allow ourselves to, experience joyful things that we like to do. Like that's what we'll talk about during our next time, because I think it's fun for people to understand that, like, the challenge for adults is that sometimes we get trapped in the world of adulting and we don't have as much of a prioritization of what brings us joy and what we like to do, because we're, especially when we have kids, centering our children, our jobs, and we don't invest in the things that we care about. And you and I both have moved differently over these last few years. You at least over a decade for you. And yeah, I think that is a huge part of this satisfaction with life, is we've actually chosen ourselves. We're like, yeah, like it's great to have our families be happy, but we can't center other people. We have to let ourselves find the things that bring us joy, do the things that we love to do, find rediscovering what those are, because we forget, we forget about sharks and minnows.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, because I bet now rollerblading, like kayaking and all these things I would have never done in my past life, you know, and cycling and
Skiing.
hiking
Yeah,
and
you're out there in nature all the time. Yeah.
like so many different things, and it just brings such a positive mindset naturally, because you're able to control your body, can control your breathing, control your thinking. And, I think a lot of the issue nowadays, I mean, not even just nowadays, but the issue, period, is society. If when you look at society and the things that they push, that they want you to do, like the commercials you see, you know, it's none of those things. It's none. And
All these
that's
weight,
what's
weight
really
loss
hard.
commercials and the
Yeah, yeah,
Botox commercials and
yeah.
the,
It's
and
none of
it's not
makeup
really
and all this stuff.
necessarily new,
I mean,
right? Just different
yeah, you
packaging.
might see a healthy commercial about healthy food, healthy eating, or maybe running shoes showing
Sprinkled
someone
in
running.
there.
Yeah, it's just very very small amounts of that advertising will be that. So yeah, it's really easy for people to get into a mindset of not even knowing they enjoy because they are doing what other things are telling them to enjoy. Whether that's going out and drinking and partying and binging Netflix or whatever it is.
Watching
It's
Love
like,
Island, and no shade to people who watch it, but I feel like I follow these people on social media who spoof the Love Island shows, and I'm like, there is no way that I could ever sit and watch this. Like I think about old like reality TV, and it's
the
that.
real world. Was the other
Yes.
one? And they were good. They actually had like contests and things that they had to do.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, okay, well, there's no way you can script that. Like they literally tried to do that thing, failed, hurt themselves, and when they hit the ground. It's like, yeah, they were really doing things back then. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
You're good. That's it. It's just a different thing now that, culture has shifted, and they want the media and yeah, society wants our attention drawn to the things that they
they
are
want.
trying to convince us that
Yeah,
will bring us joy, but in truth, we can only figure out what truly brings us joy by trying it out and trying to figure out those moments where that felt really good. I really enjoyed that, and I didn't have to do something counter supportive or productive for myself, like take drugs
well,
or
it's
whatever.
getting back to your childhood, basically.
Right.
Getting back to that curiosity and that stage of, man, I don't care what we do. You want to just play with these rocks and you know what I mean?
Let's
Like,
pretend these rocks are something
Yeah.
else, right? Like, yeah, like that's
And
the
then you just think of a game and have fun with it,
right.
and that's because we're
I
always
love that with
distracted.
Azusa and his friends. I remember this like yesterday that they used to play. What the heck is it called? That game, Manhunt, for like hours and hours, like day and night. And I think about that, like that's like like they creating their own little like war scenario type thing or whatever. And that's just like kids doing fun things. And I'm not saying that you want to necessarily do that with with your friends as an adult, but there are things that you can do. Like I was Ronnie has gotten into geocaching, and that's like finding objects. I don't know how to describe it. I'm probably butchering it. Have you heard of it before?
No, I don't think
Yeah,
so.
it's all over the world apparently, but there's like you can basically go on, I'm going to call them like little treasure hunts, where it's like you're actually trying to, I think it's clues that they give you to get to an object. And there's apps and things where people put these things and they hide things places. It's pretty cool.
So you're
But that,
like a little detective type
yeah.
person trying to uncover the secrets.
And it's a real like you get there and there's like sometimes a message or a little gift or whatever. Like she recently got like this cute little scroll someone had written, I can't, like a poem or something on it, and a bracelet or something, and it was in this little time capsule jar. Like, yeah, it's a cool thing, but it's stuff like
Very
that that I'm
amazing.
like,
I've never.
yeah,
I mean, I guess that's using technology in really unique ways, and that
exactly.
again using
Keeping
it as
with
a tool,
real life, which I appreciate that. It's like we can use technology to, as you had mentioned earlier, be a tool for deeper, more intentional connection, more meaningful connection. And that is when we are being more conscious with our use of technology, not using it to
consumption or the other.
exactly.
You're either consuming or you're doing something. What would be the other opposite of
I mean, I
consumption?
would say consumption versus creating, but I would
Yeah.
say, yeah, I mean, that would even be creating moments, creating opportunities for connection, and not saying you have to be the creator of the app, but you can be the one to create the moments where you enjoy the app together. I don't know if that's a good
No,
comparison,
I
but that would be
resonated with me. So,
works for me. So I'm excited about our next conversation because we're gonna next time let's really dive into this how we arrived here so we can inspire people to consider this. And I think you and I both, those of you who aren't familiar with what I talk about, we both didn't go the same path, even though we are happier with our life existence. We've chosen different paths, and I think that's really important
we're
for
very
us to.
similar though. We're
They are
both,
similar.
healthy,
Yeah, yeah,
health conscious, active. I
exactly.
do yoga, you do yoga.
Yep.
It's like a lot of the same things. I mean, I think we even both went on a vegan diet at the same time. We're like, oh wow, you're like, yeah, I'm vegan too. It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
wow, how did we come back to this? And now we're here.
Exactly. And like that's the beauty of having other people in your world. I think community is everything that you can be inspired by, right? So whether it's family or friends, or maybe it's like a circle that you guys go out there to find your people that you can kind of create this more joyful experience and have a circle of people that can be there for you in those moments that are difficult, because we're all going to meet grief and we all need people that can be safe and loving containers for us to hold all the stuff that comes up when we're grieving, or when we're experiencing difficulties in life. We need other people to just be there for us, and community is that element that supports all those things. So yeah, is there anything else you want to share? I typically close off with a signature and a sign-off message. I don't know if there's anything that you want to share, since this is kind of a part one. Maybe there's something there. My sign-off message is, if there's one message you would amplify to the world, what would it be? If there's one message you could amplify to the world, what would it be? Maybe based on this topic.
Spend more time being bored. Spend more time with less distractions. Spend more time with yourself. And yeah. And not saying that if you're already alone and you're already spending time, I mean, like, not being distracted by outside forces, like actually sitting there with your thoughts and just thinking and, breathing and, being here and not wherever the other society wants you to be.
Yeah, it's true. I like that. That's a great message. Thank you for that. And I will echo that sentiment, that to say that oftentimes we miss the most potent way of learning how to experience ourselves more fully. For example, if I were to just say, if you meet somebody that you like, you want to maybe get to know them more, you want to maybe spend a season with them or a life with them, right? What is the thing that the one thing that you're going to do?
I'm sorry. I
You're
didn't know you were asking me a question. I thought you. So can you repeat that?
It's so good. It's so like that was for me. What I was just wondering if you I was asking the audience, but I was curious if you knew what would be the one thing that you would do if you met somebody that you really liked and you wanted to maybe deepen the connection with. What would be the one thing that you would do?
And say this is like a person I'm just meeting in passing, and I'm like having a conversation with that person, and I'm
And not just
curious.
like a one action, but like maybe a theme of actions, right? Like if you wanted to get to know somebody, what would you do?
Just talk to him. Walk
Right?
up. Hey, what's up?
Yeah. I mean, and to like water it down a little bit more,
I mean,
you would.
I'm a shy person though, so
I know.
that necessarily
No,
it
you're so
depends.
good.
You know,
You you would spend time with them. If you
yeah,
want to get to know them, you would, right, talk to them like you said, talk to them more, have quality, hopefully one-on-one conversations with them, and that same thing is true for you. Like you said that a moment ago that
yeah.
spend
I
time in
mean,
solitude. Like if you reframe this idea of like, well, how do I start to love myself, appreciate myself, whatever,
how do
like
I know what I like? How do I know?
exactly. How do I get to know this person? You have to spend time with you. If you want to get to know that person that you are attracted to or whatever, you would spend time with them to get to know them. Same thing is true for yourself. Like if you
Perfectly
really
said.
want to know yourself, my one of my teachers says this, you're going to try to befriend yourself. Like
Yeah,
become the person that you would want to, who how would you want to spend what would you want to do to get to know somebody to create a relationship or remedy a relationship? It's all in that quality time, and the same thing is true for yourself. Like in that moment in solitude, and like you said, asking yourself, well, what do you want to do today? Do you still like playing chess? Is that something that you like to do? Like, well, let's try it. Like those are things that you have to try, in order to figure it out. Like I still love some of the random things that I loved when I was a kid. Like I've been making bracelets again. I used to love making jewelry, but I also have forever loved word finds, which is so simple, so silly.
I
I love
remember that actually. I remember those days.
word finds, and whenever I'm just like I'm bored, I'm gonna sit here and listen to the birds and do a word find for like a 30-minute session or whatever, or take it with me wherever. Like sometimes I feel the need to. I still fight with this need to produce, like I used to literally take work everywhere. And I used to fight with this need, even going somewhere very chill, like at the pool. Like I have to bring a book. I have to be doing something productive. Let me bring my journal and, create the next, how am I going to take over the world? Like, whatever plan. Like I try to do something productive there. And now I try not to. And I'm like, okay, instead I'm going to bring something that's just fun, light, and easy. And so yeah, maybe for y'all it's like Sudoku or something like that. I cannot Sudoku. That is not my thing. But I love word find. I love word search and word find. What is that other one? Yeah. Anyway, that's what I enjoy. But those are things that I remember from childhood that I liked, and it just has stuck with me. And that came from abuela. Actually, she used to always buy those little books
Hmm.
from the
I remember.
store. You remember?
Yeah, yeah. You see all those little books all around, circles
Everywhere.
around the words, and like, what is this?
Everywhere. It's so crazy the things that yeah, that stuck. So true.
One last thing: be curious.
Be
Learn
curious.
how to be bored and learn how to be curious. Just don't ever judge anything. Don't ever, deny anything because I don't. If you've never done it, try it. You might love it. You never know.
Indeed. Curiosity is so valuable. Like I talk about that a lot in even in movement facilitation, like teaching people how to move their bodies. Like it's less about the doing and more about getting curious about how your body wants to move. Like don't just follow me, but be curious about like what actually feels good, what feels like it needs to come through in that moment. And be like a kid, kids are like that. They're like, oh, how far can I spin my arm back here? Like they think the strangest, cutest things. And the same thing is necessary. Like we were designed with these bodies that can do so much, and so being curious is a huge catalyst, I think, to keeping us in connection and physically mobile when we actually are finding ourselves in that place of curiosity.
Limited. It's just, yeah. I mean, the possibilities is just, you never know. I mean, yeah. I mean, we can talk about this all day. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's so good. We've been here for a while.
I know.
I decided to stand up today, so now my legs are like. No, but it's been such a joy, brother. I am grateful for these sessions, and I'm grateful that we're able to do a full episode together. And I look forward to the next one. I do.
I'm grateful as well. You gave me an opportunity to just hone my skill in presenting and talking, and you know, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
It's a joy. I love it. I love it so much. I am grateful that you've chosen to be here. And if folks want to get in touch with you, what would be the best way for them to do that?
I guess that would be Facebook, Instagram. That's Stephen Viala's. I don't know if there's
I can
others,
link them.
but
I'll link it
probably
in the bottom too.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I don't have them off the top of my head. I
Exactly.
don't use social media that often. I try to stay disconnected from society until I need to use it as a tool. So that's what I do.
Yeah, we're going to talk more about that for sure next time, because I think that is counterculture is the theme that you and I both have figured out.
Yeah.
And I think that
It's
is
definitely one thing we align on. We do not do anything that a lot of other people do. So.
Yep. And I think that is where we have found ourselves weirdly, you know, when you're not trying to take everyone else's opinions of what you need to be doing or should be doing. So I'm excited about that, talking about that with you. So thank you, brother. I love you so much. Thank you guys.
Jazzy.
Yeah. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us, and we'll see you in the next episode. Take care.
Bye, everyone.